Bryant Wesco will go down as one of the greatest wide receivers to play at Clemson University.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On Clemson podcast. I'm your host, John Bivens, right here. You can follow me over on Twitter at I am John Bivens. Hey, if you don't know me, I am a credentialed media member for Clemson University. Be able to go down there, personnel, where it's football, baseball, basketball games, such as I got this hat at the Asheville Championship this past basketball season when Clemson won that. PG Hall was the MVP of that. But yeah, I'm a credentialed media over there, lifelong fan of Clemson, and the host of your awesome Locked On Clemson podcast. Thanks so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast at and over on YouTube. We're a part of the amazing Locked On Clemson or Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Here on the Locked On Clemson podcast, we're three things. We're all sports, we're all passion, and we are all the time when it comes to Clemson University. Today is Thursday, May 8th. We're going to dive in on why Bryant Wesco is the greatest wide receiver, or will be one of the greatest wide receivers at Clemson. We're going to go through our wide receiver room, talk about some of the best wide receivers to go through Clemson, and we're also, it is Turbulent Thursday. We're going to dive into some hot takes over at Clemson on Twitter, and so we're going to dive into all that and so much more on today's episode of the Locked On Clemson podcast. Hey, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate you're here. We're so grateful to have just amazing network, amazing family, amazing community here with Locked On Clemson. Clemson is by far the best school to be a fan of. It's just the environment, the culture, the fans. It's a family, right? It's a family affair. So Bryant Wesco will go down as one of the best wide receivers to play for Clemson. And look, that's a bold take. That's a bold take for a couple different reasons. One, we haven't seen him play a game. We've seen him in a spring game, but we haven't seen him in a live game. Two, there are so many great wide receivers to go through Clemson. You've got T. Higgins, Mike Williams, DeAndre Hopkins, Sammy Watkins, Hunter Renfrow. There's so many really, really talented wide receivers to go through. So making this prediction that Bryant Wesco is going to be one of the best among that list is bold, right? I mean, it's hot, but trust me, this guy is going to be something special. Bryant Wesco is going to be he's a dog. He's going to be one of the greatest or best wide receivers to play for Clemson. Am I saying he's going to be the best? No, absolutely not. He might be. I don't know, but I'm not making that. I'm not that bold. Calm down a little bit. But I think he will be top 10 all time, and that's a bold statement. When you look at his, we're just going to start off talking about him. Let's get to know him a little bit more because a lot of us, maybe we don't know him as much. Let's go through a scouting report. So earlier on, when he first was a scout, when first scouting, he was a little bit higher ranked than what he is now. He consistently, through all of the major recruiting services, he was a top 35 player in the nation, 5-star according to a lot of different places. In one place, had him as the top 15th player in the nation. Third best in wide receiver, or at Texas, fifth best receiver nation. Since then, since other players have came and different recruits and spring game, all that kind of stuff, he's gone down a little bit. But right now, according to 24/7, their last and most up-to-date prospect report is that he was 57th highest player in the nation, 11th best wide receiver, and 8th best Texas player prospect coming out for this coming year. That's high numbers. That's really high numbers. We haven't seen this large of a recruit come in a couple years. It's been a while. So he's very hard. Recruiting scouts love him. That's okay. What more? We need more to make this bold claim, right? We need more than that to back up how he's going to be one of the best wide receivers. Well, he's, according to one of his reports, and if you look at him and watch different videos of him playing in high school, man, he's got a lot of one. He comes from an athletic family. His father was a Louisiana Tech Athletics Hall of Fame member. He was like a 5-time All-American in triple jump. He holds a bunch of records for Louisiana Tech for track and field. Bryant Wesco also, he played track and field in high school. He's got some awards, was regionals in the 5A, made some state championships. He was great in track and field, but he was great in football. And so his senior year of high school, his junior year of high school was a huge year. His junior year of high school, he had 58 catches for 1,160 yards with 17 touchdowns. 17 touchdowns on 58 catches. The yards per reception came out to be about 20 yards per reception. That's huge. That's big for 4A. And just for stats, if you're a numbers kind of person, I know I am. He had 58 catches for 17 touchdowns. That means about 1 out of every 3.5 catches were a touchdown. I'd take that at Clemson. I would gladly take that if he continued doing that at Clemson. Obviously, it's going to be different in a D1 school than a 5A Texas school, but still, he was a great player in high school, and we're going to see that move on into Clemson. He's a 6'2" senior or wide receiver, so he's got a little bit of height on it. Most of our other wide receivers are 6'1", 6 foot, 5'11", that range. Well, he's 170, so he's a little lean. I think he'll put on some muscle. I think he'll build up a little bit. He reminds me of almost like a T. Higgins. T. Higgins had a couple inches on him. He was like 6'4", but he had that tall, lean build. And when you watch Bryant, he's shifty. One of his greatest attributes about him is not only can he catch and make these incredibly athletic catches, but he's got crazy speed. He's got the kind of speed that honestly maybe a downfall is sometimes it feels like he's got to get into rhythm before he gets going. Like he can catch one open and he can run, but he's kind of got to build up to his full speed. So hopefully Dabo and our offensive coach, Garrett Riley, can be able to coach him in some acceleration, some fast off the line, fast off the jump, build that up. But he's got crazy speed. He's also can make people miss. Looking at his high school tapes, and granted, it's high school tapes. I'm not making this decision just because of what he was in high school. But just looking at those, he'll make catches and he makes people miss. He makes people miss on the running through the line and running through all the aspects. He makes people miss with the ball. So he's great running with the ball. He's great catching for yards. He fights for the yards. He's shifty. He's quick. He's got great hands. He's got great footwork. There was like 3 or 4 highlights from his senior season where he was making crazy catches, toe tipping in the end zone to make a touchdown. And he's getting both feet down. We only need one, but he's getting both feet down. So from the bottom to end, he has so many great things to like. What do you need in a great wide receiver? People who can catch. He hardly dropped the ball at all. What else do you need? Smart route running. He's good route runner. There's obviously room for improvement, but he can run the routes. Great footwork. Check. Speed. Check. Shifty, check. You run after catch, check. He marks all the boxes. He's got the build. Only corrections I put with him is hopefully he can build that acceleration like we talked, and then add a little bit of more muscle. He's a little lean, maybe build some more muscle just to be able to push off some defenders and then be able to fight through some contact, that kind of aspect. But overall, Bryant Wesco, he's going to be special. Only thing we've seen him right now is in the spring game. We saw him playing that, and he played really, really well. We were happy to see that spring game, his performance. Had that touchdown, that beautiful lob over the shoulder catch in the corner of the end zone. It was beautiful. It was a great play. Love to see it. I can't wait to see more of that. I'm really excited about Bryant Wesco. I do think he's going to be one of the best wide receivers at Clemson. I think he's going to. And so with him being at Clemson right now, as we talked about yesterday for our everydayers, you heard us talk about our resource, ourlads.com, that gives updated and projected starting lineups and depth charts for different teams, different colleges, that kind of stuff. And so with that being said, their projected depth chart for Clemson football this upcoming season, they have Bryant Wesco at the 3rd string or wide receiver Z spot. He might start there. I don't think he's anywhere close to that. I think he's a starting. But our other wide receivers, we got some great wide receivers in that room. We got Troy Stellato, who's a redshirt junior. We got Antonio Williams, who's great. Adam Randall, Cole Turner, Ronan Halfton, and we also have Bryant Wesco. So don't forget Tyler Brown or TJ Moore too, another freshman with TJ Moore. So we've got plenty of talent on that wide receiver line. Last year, one of our downfalls, obviously offensive line, obviously Cade was inconsistent. But wide receivers, it felt like there was some drop balls. It felt like there was some struggling from them with route running. This year, I think we're going to go back to having those elite wide receivers. It is in the making. Clemson is in the making, as we talked about. Great quarterback room, great running back room, great wide receiver room. I really think this wide receiver, it doesn't slack off. it doesn't fall short. I think this is going to be one of the better wide receiver rooms as a whole that we've had in a while. Going back to the Justin Ross, T. Higgins, and Sammy Watkins, DeAndre Hopkins, I think this has those potentials to go down in history as some of the great wide receiver rooms. I'm really excited about it. So get excited. Get excited. This season's coming up. I know it feels like so long. It's only May. August is not that far. It isn't that far away. So get excited. Get close to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. And overall, Clemson's wide receiver room is really good, really talented, and Bryant Wesco is going to be one of the greats for Clemson University once his career is done. In just a moment, we're going to keep this conversation going. And speaking of wide receivers, what about that? What would be the top 10 wide receivers to play at Clemson? Well, Sports Illustrated put out an article about that, and we're going to go through that list in just a moment.
Guess what, guys? It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Guess what? The NBA playoffs are here. Anthony Edwards is absolutely killing it. And plus, if you're into the NHL, we got some slap shots you can bet on. The Carolina Hurricanes are in the second round right now, so I need you to go to that bad boy and check it out, because here's what new customers can get. $150. Yes, you heard that correctly. $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Let me repeat that. $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. And I'm telling you, you can bet on anything from the spreads, the money lines, player props, and much, much more. I'm telling you, $150, oh my God, you can win some money. All you got to do is pay attention and go to FanDuel.com/locked-on. The website is FanDuel.com/locked-on, LOCKEDON, and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook.
Welcome back to the Locked On Clemson podcast. Hey, thanks for joining us. Thanks for that. Those were one of our sponsors over there. Hey, we appreciate Jarvis Davis. He is he's an awesome host of another of our Locked On podcast network. That's who you just heard from. He hosts our Locked On Atlanta show. So if you're an Atlanta Hawks, Atlanta Falcons, Atlanta Braves, if you're an Atlanta fan, go watch his episode or go watch his show. Give his podcast a listen. Locked On Atlanta. He's got some great stuff over there. Hey, we just got a new Falcon. We got another Falcon playing from Clemson over there, Rook. Go listen to his take on all that and so much more over on the Locked On Atlanta podcast. But hey, so Locked On Clemson, we've talked Bryant Wesco. When I said that he's going to be one of the greatest wide receivers to play for Clemson, some of y'all immediately started rattling players off. You started saying Artavius Scott, Hunter Renfrow, all these are amazing players. Like, there's no way he's that good. There's no way he's as good at that. He is, but in with that spirit going, talking about wide receivers, let's keep that up. Let's keep that conversation going, and let's go through some of the top wide receivers to play in Clemson's program history. Sports Illustrated, the Fan Nation aspect of it over there, put an article out in 2020 that we're going to go through, and they ranked 10 of our top wide receivers of all program history. Granted, this was out in 2020, so it's a little dated. Doesn't include like Justin Ross. I would personally have him on my list at number. I think I'd put him at 9 or maybe 8. But he'd be on my list. But he's not on this list just because it came in 2020. But let's dive in. Clemson is known for a defensive line university. There was a period in time where we were tempted to be in wide receiver university, and I think the argument's still there. I think the argument of us being the top 5 wide receiver unit in NFL history, especially in the 2020s, 2000s, I think the argument's there. So let's dive into their list, see who they had. Number 10, the 10 spot for them, they had Artavius Scott. So Artavius Scott, at that time, he was the Clemson leader in receptions, but he only played in 3 seasons. In 3 seasons, he had 245 receptions, and he led the team all 3 of those years. He was all ACC in all the season. If you remember Artavius Scott, he was electric to watch. He was so fun. He was shifty. Hated he only played 3 years, but man, he was good. He was a great player to watch. Number 9, they have them at number 9, and this one I disagree with. I think you got to put this guy higher just for the sole fact of how memorial fan favorite he was. They have Hunter Renfrow. I know they have Hunter Renfrow at number 9. Some of you are like, what? Hunter Renfrow at 9? I think he's top 5 Clemson history, maybe 6. He doesn't have like any of the awards or any of like the big record holders or anything like that. He does have some record holders. He's fifth in program history with 186 career catches. He also holds the record for the amount of starts as a receiver, for the receiver with the most consecutive games with a reception. And overall, his career, he played in 7 different college football games, and in those 7, he caught 37 passes and 4 touchdowns. That averages about 5 catches a game and 1 touchdown, or half a touchdown a game. 1 touchdown every 2 games. That's good. That's good numbers. So I think he should be a little higher. They had him at number 9. Keeping going through the list, they had Dwayne Allen at number 8. And so this is interesting. This is an interesting take because Dwayne Allen wasn't a wide receiver. Dwayne Allen was a tight end for us. If you remember him, he played tight end for the Colts, which is exciting. He played for the Patriots. He played for so many teams. He is a good player. Overall, he's a really good player. And in the NFL, he had a really good NFL career as well. But for Clemson, they have him at number 8 there with the 8th best receiver in Clemson. He is the all-time leader in receptions by a tight end at that time. Jordan Leggett is now currently holds that record. Jordan Leggett, I don't understand how Dwayne Allen made this list, but Jordan Leggett didn't. But anyway, yeah, they have him there. He finished with over 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns, and he was a third-round pick by the Colts. Played a couple years with Peyton Manning. Had some electric years over there. So they had 8 Dwayne Allen. Keeping it going. This is an old school guy. I'm less than 30. I'm in my late 20s. So I don't remember this guy a lot. Obviously, I wasn't alive. But they have Jerry Butler, played from 75 to 78. I've looked through his stuff, and pretty much the only thing that I know Jerry Butler for is for that one catch in the victory over South Carolina in like 77. That's kind of what people are known for. But he did finish. He finished Clemson with over 2,000 career yards. Had at least 1 reception in like 35 games consecutively. Crazy stats. So number 7 was Jerry Butler. Number 6 was another guy too far ago, Rod Gardner. Rod Gardner was the first team All-American in the 2000 season. He was the top 10 semifinalist for the Blinken Award, which is given like the nation's number 1 wide receiver, 23rd in the nation that year. But overall, he was good. The rest of wide receiver, put on a pretty consistent team, consistent performer for Clemson in that time. Now we're getting in the top 5. And here's why I'm saying that we should be consistent for like wide receiver university from like 2010 to now, because in our top 5 wide receivers, 4 of them are in the NFL and play or in the NFL right now. And one of them was in like the 80s. He was a little bit before then, but the rest of them played in that period and they were in the NFL right now. They have T. Higgins at number 5. T was a 2-time All ACC selection. A great player. If you remember T. Higgins, he was electric. He was 6'4". He was primarily known for that red zone target. Him and Trevor Lawrence had such a special connection. During his career, he had 135 receptions, almost 2,500 receiving yards, and 27 touchdowns. Man, if there's anything about T. Higgins I remember, it was that he had this ability, more than anyone I know, just to create space in tight spots. He could be at the goal line, in the 2-yard line, and he'd be making space before he got to the middle of the end zone. He's electric. He was electric at making space by creating history. I think he was great. I think the only thing not having him a little higher, why they maybe didn't put him higher, is he isn't in top 10 of any reception list at Clemson, and so that's tough. But overall, really good player for us. Number 4, they have DeAndre Hopkins. I'm surprised they have him as low. A lot of people put DeAndre Hopkins at 1 or 2 for Clemson. They have him at 5. Tiger Network or Clemson Sports Talk, a great program, a great facility. They have great articles, great Twitter. Go follow them for sure. They have DeAndre Hopkins at 2. He's still currently one of the best wide receivers in the league. He graduated Clemson all the way back in 2012. So we are 12 years post him being graduated, and he's still a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. He's crazy good. He's consistent. He's electric. He's such a great player. Won a bunch of awards. Great physical player. I'm not going to spend a lot of time because if you're a Clemson football fan, you know DeAndre Hopkins. You know Nuke. He's awesome. He's little different on the field, but he's a good player. He was great for us. Number 3, this is probably my second favorite player. Second favorite wide receiver to play at Clemson, and that's Mike Williams. Mike Williams he played from 2013 to 2016, but that 2015 season he didn't play at all because he had a neck fracture. But 2016, when he came back, he led in receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns for that Clemson team. He was second team All-American. He played for that championship game. He was a great player, great receiver. Was drafted top 10 in the NFL draft by the Chargers. He was a good player. He was electric. He was big. Gosh, I remember how big he was. He'd have a 5'10", 5'9" cornerback lineup on him, and it like he was playing against like Little League football. It was wild. He was so big. Just his stature was dominating on the field, and his play style was dominating. And then number 2, this is another one that people know. That if you're a Clemson fan, you know this guy, Perry Turtle. He's a Clemson legend, number 22 for us. I remember Clemson, when I think of Perry Turtle, I remember the photo. That's him going, yeah, celebrating, hugging his mom on the sidelines. That was electric. He helped Clemson win the first national championship. Our first one we ever won was against Nebraska, and he helped us win that game. He is another one, consecutive passes, where he caught a pass in every 32 consecutive games that he played in. He had 17 total touchdowns. He had 8 100-yard games. So he was a great player. He's electric. He's someone that will always be remembered as a great Clemson wide receiver. And then finally on the list, number 1, and this is my favorite player to ever play for Clemson at the wide receiver spot. Number 1 wide receiver for Clemson is Sammy Watkins. Sammy Watkins was crazy. He was electric. He was shifty. He could play out wide. He played at running back a little bit. He played in the slot. He was Hunter Renfrow, but so much better. He was electric. He only played 3 years for us, but he still holds a lot of awards for us. Sammy, hey, here's his abilities. He's number 2 in career receptions with 240. He's number 1 in career receiving yards. In 3 years, remember, 3 years, he received 3,391 reception yards. Crazy. He holds a single-size season yardage mark. He had almost 1,500 yards in 2013. Crazy. He's tied with DeAndre Hopkins and T. Higgins with number 1 with career touchdowns with 27. He was wild. He was electric. He was such a great player. He was shifty. Some days on a rainy day, whenever, like last year especially, when we had a little rough year in Clemson football, I would just go watch Sammy Watkins clips because he was fun to watch. He was electric. But yeah, those are their top 10 list. Again, I would put Justin Ross in there. I would slide him in there. I love the people on that list. I'm not sure who I would slide off. Hunter Renfrow's got to be on the list. Dwayne Allen, I probably would slide him off just because obviously he's not a wide receiver. But still, I think Jordan Leggett was a better overall tight end than he was at Clemson. Not overall, but at Clemson. So I'd probably slide Dwayne Allen out, put Hunter Renfrow 8, Artavius Scott 9, and then Justin Ross 10 would be my order. But that's the top receivers for Clemson. In just a minute, we are going to continue this off with our segment, The Turbulent Thursday, where we dive into some hot takes. So we'll be back in just a moment. We are so grateful for one of our sponsors today, which is Yahoo Finance. Wouldn't it be great if you could see all of your investment and retirement accounts in one place? With Yahoo Finance, you can consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub, and you can access the expert analysis you need to tend to your entire portfolio with confidence. My wife and I have a baby coming in November, our firstborn, and we are excited, but that means it's time to get serious about our finances. It's time to continue trying to be focused with investments and retirements and setting money aside. And Yahoo Finance is an amazing resource that helps us with that, both investment and retirement. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or just looking for extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. With a community of over 900 million users each month, their real strength is helping you find your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the number one financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That is yahoofinance.com. Welcome let's continue this conversation. Let's keep diving in. We talked about our wide receiver room and how Bryant Wesco is going to be great. We talked about the great wide receivers of Clemson history and how we're wide receiver U. We're on that list. Now it's time for us to dive into this every Thursday segment, almost every Thursday segment, our Turbulent Thursdays. What this is where we take hot takes from social media on Clemson and we just bring it to the podcast. We bring up different takes, different tweets that we see over on X, and we see what's what are they talking about? What's going on there? What's happening there? And so whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's indifferent, whether it's crazy, we dive into those and we talk about it. And so today, as I was looking for tweets, or last night as I was scrolling through Twitter to see what I wanted to bring up today on the Turbulent Thursday, I saw a tweet that I had to talk about. It's not a hot take; it's just a crazy fact. Yesterday, if you're an everyday listener, yesterday on Wednesday, we talked about how Dabo didn't have any transfers coming in for this year's football team. You know, there's only 4 schools in the FBS, on all of FBS, that does not have any transfers coming in. You know who they are? Army, Navy, Air Force, and Clemson. So 3 of our military branches football teams and Clemson University. Ridiculous. So ridiculous. So you know our thoughts. If you didn't hear today's episode, go listen to that. You can find it on all of the streaming platforms for podcasts and over on YouTube. But yeah, that's ridiculous. Can't have that. But today we're going to dive into 2 hot takes that I really want to spend a little bit of time talking about. And this week, if these takes are true, this is really great for Clemson. And so the first one we want to talk about came from a tweet from CFB Live 24/7. They're a cool college football Twitter account. It is at CFB Live 247_. They're a cool account. They're a really cool account. But on their receiving units, they tweeted a tweet last night where it said they put out their top 5 wide receiver units for the 2024 college football season. So they had number 1 was Ole Miss Rebels. Number 2 was Ohio State Buckeyes. Number 3 was Texas Longhorns. Number 5 was Georgia Bulldogs. But we were sitting at number 4, Clemson Tigers, saying that we were going to have the 4th best wide receiver unit in all of college football this season. Guys, we spent this whole episode talking about how great our football team is. We've talked about how great our wide receivers are. Bryant Wesco is going to lead this, but the rest of that unit, if this tweet's accurate, and I believe that it is, I think we could be better than 4th. I think we could be 1 or 2. But what this tweet says, it supports what we're talking about. Clemson has the potential. Clemson has the players. We have the offensive coordinator with Garrett Riley. We have the coach and the progressor and the mentor of Dabo Swinney. We have an experienced quarterback now with Cade Klubnik, who's already has 2 years under his belt, 1 full of being the full-time starter. Troy Stellato, Antonio Williams, Adam Randall, Bryant Wesco, Tyler Brown, they're going to lead us to success. We're going to see success happen. We're going to see a great wide receiver unit. If our offensive line can protect our quarterback, can give Cade the time he needs, and our wide receivers can play, if we're in for a special season. Get excited. CFB football, man, you got it right. I think we do have one of the best units for college football season. Hit the nail right on the head of the money. The second tweet I want to talk about is regarding to our defensive unit. And so the Clemson Insider, it's a great Clemson article. They quoted Khalil Barnes, who's a safety for Clemson. He plays in our secondary. He's a sophomore. Khalil Barnes said this tweet. It said that last year there was adversity, and it was our first year here. We've been watching Clemson every year, but it goes on and talks about the Clemson unit. But he says that Clemson's secondary, our cornerbacks and our safeties, our defensive secondary, he says can be the best in the nation. That's something to get excited about. That is something to be like, yes, we can. Our defense unit last year was really good, one of the top in the nation. I think our defensive unit would have been even better if they could have had some offensive drives that didn't turn the ball over so much, that put longer drives over than a lot of 3-and-outs. If our offensive could have matched defense last year, I think we would have had the best defense in the nation. Our defense unit is stout. Since our defensive coordinator has took over, since Goodwin has taken over, our defensive unit has been stout. It has been amazing. It has been crazy good. And I think what he's talking about, I think what Khalil Barnes is saying here is completely true. I think if our offense can play, can create, give the defense time to rest, they don't have to be on the field so much, I think our defensive unit can be really, really special. And he's talking about just secondary. I'm going to go bigger. I think our defensive line, our linebackers, our entirety of a defense can be one of the best in the nation. Goodwin took over the defensive coordinator role after in December 2021. And man, since then, he's been playing well. 22 had a good defense. 23 had a good defense. Now it's time for 24 for our offense to match that defense and let Wes Goodwin really shine on the national spotlight. Because once our offense can provide us some wins in those close games, Wes Goodwin, they're going to be like, yo, this defense is special. So Khalil, I agree with you, man. I think we do have one of the best defensive secondaries, and I think we have one of the best defensive team in the nation. Super excited about that. I think it would be, I agree with you, man. And so with all that being said, though, with that being the case, with that being the hot takes, those being the Turbulent Thursdays, that is going to wrap up this edition of the Clemson Locked On podcast. Hey, thanks so much for joining us today. Tomorrow's episode, we're going to dive more into that defensive side. We're going to dive more into the defensive side of the ball and kind of talk through some of the units over on that side and more on that. As for today, though, let me know your thoughts. Reach out to us on Twitter. Reach out to us on email, any of that kind of stuff. Reach out to me. I'd love to know your thoughts on what we talked about today. Comment down on YouTube. We got into some comments yesterday's video about Cade Klubnik and Trip Pierman. Had two guys on there comment and have conversations with, one of which said that Trent Pierman should already be contending for a number one spot. Let us know your thoughts. We'd love to get into some conversations with you over on YouTube about all that and so much more. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to this podcast wherever you get your podcast at, or if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button over there. That way, every single day, here the Locked On Clemson podcast can be your first listen every day, bringing you everything you need to know about Clemson sports. Well, we can't wait to see you on tomorrow's episode. As always, keep that Tiger pride alive and roaring, and don't forget, go Tigers.